global war and terror to the trenches of Ukraine, we have the Daniel Defense M4A1 RIS III. This is a rifle that has been well proven in combat at this point, and today we're going to be taking a deep dive on it. So hopefully guys will stay tuned as we talk about this very well vetted and very well made combat rifle. Does it stand up to all the tests we put it through, or is it overpriced? We'll find out. Now, of course, this content is kept free by our wonderful sponsors, and in fact, they're so wonderful that they remind me to tell me to stop telling you to stop emailing them, but I can't do that. I'm sorry. Guys, Primary Arms is our biggest sponsor, and we love them. They've sponsored us for like 3 years at this point, keeping this content amazing, and even better, US-made pistol optics, HGX1, amazing low-powered variable optics, and everything you could possibly want. So, what I'm going to say to you is email them right now and say, you know what? I love you. I love you. Maybe they love you back. We don't know. I love you. And of course, we are sponsored by Bravo Company USA. We consider them to be the best balance between price and what you're getting in terms of performance. Now, right here, we actually have one of the BCM nice little QD mounts right here. We use their stuff all the time. We have long been a fan of the MCMR. Get out there and just give them tons of love and say, you know what? We love the MCMR, and you can't convince me that I don't love it. Email them that. Do you guys like gaming? Because Zydax makes amazing gaming computers that both me and Sawyer use. I'm pushing over 300 frames per second on Battlefield 6, and I'm still dying. But you know what? It looks really good when I die. Point is, the owner loves and we love him, and we had to censor that word. Basically, guns that fire really, really fast. But they are awesome, big Second Amendment supporters. And finally, guys, as we're about to get into shooting, we have to plug Last Shot Arizona. They provide our ammo, but more importantly, they're not bulk providers. What they do is provide high-quality defensive and war ammo. M855 Alpha 1, 70 grain TSX. We always recommend having at least 13 mags of very good ammo. With all that being said, talk is cheap, ammunition is extremely expensive. Let's get into it. There you go. Look at that, I just used a forward assist. People are like, you never use a forward assist. Well, you know what? As your gun gets dirty when you fire suppressed, sometimes you need it. Clean your gun. You can't always do it if you're in the trenches of Ukraine. Okay, we're going to be starting off with some drills, guys. We're going to be showing the weapon, how it performs from a shooter's perspective. The first one that we always start with is a Vil drill. That's going to be 6 rounds, fired at 7 yards, in under 2 seconds, but I think we can do it sub-second today. I'm actually determined to get it sub-second today. So here's our A zone right here, all the vital parts in a human body. We don't want to get outside of that. C zone, very bad. D zone, C's get degrees, dudes. D's doesn't get you anything. Okay, so we have our lovely little shot timer right here, 7 yards, and we are firing full power military ammo. Let's check everything. Okay, we are ready. Think I can get this?
I think you got this for sure.
1.12 with one Charlie. I can do better. I can definitely do better. 1.24 all A. Whew, 1.05. Just so you guys can see. So except for that first drill, everything's getting in A zone. Gotta push it again.
You're getting closer. You're getting closer.
Oh.
That might have been it.
0.99. Let's go. Okay, so now that we've done the Vil drill, what we're showing is that the gun is fast, repeatable, reliable. This gun runs very well. Next thing we'll be showing you guys is going to be a good old transition. We're going to transition between 2 targets. It's the only transition that we like here in Grantham. Okay, so we'll do a transition right here. We'll start gun up. We'll see how quick it is to drive across. It's a longer gun, maybe a little bit slower. We shall see. 0.26 going across. A zone, A zone. Feels good. Give it one more. Oh. So that was that right there. So if there's one thing I'm going to change on my safety, it's I have a long lever on the right side, and right there it caught on my hand. So you kind of have to lift it up, but you can get a short throw right there. Not a short throw, a shorter lever. That's going to help with that. That is a training issue right there. I suck. Whoa. .59 is zone. I think the .2 something from before only picked up 1 round because that's way too quick. So first one was not .29. That was like probably closer to a point. Probably closer to a .5. Yeah, the last one was .59. Make a correction there. Okay, nice. So our transitions across are really good. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna do a little bit of longer shooting. We'll be shooting at 120 yards, and then we'll step it out all the way out to 600. Let's go check it out. Okay, we're at 100 right here. Fell a little past 100, but let's give it an old shot right here. Pretty easy. We'll step it out a little bit further.
This is a swamp.
Yeah, it's muddy right now. What's the water table at here? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we're at about 120 right here. Easy. This gun is extremely repeatable, reliable, accurate. We're regularly pushing MOA or less with good ammunition on this thing. It's a very, very accurate gun, even with its government profile barrel, which I'm not boo-hooing. There's a purpose to it in certain cases, but for most of you, probably not going to matter if you can mount a grenade launcher or not, although that is cool. Okay guys, we'll be firing out to about 550, maybe 650. We'll see what we're doing here. Our aimpoint optic has water incursion in it, so it's completely fogged up, so this thing's freaking useless at this point, so thanks for nothing, aimpoint. Okay, so just dot only in the mud. Let's get the shot. We'll do going at 350 to start. Okay, 350, got my hold. Pretty easy. We're gonna step it out to 550 now. Got my approximate drop. I just got a dot here, so see how we're doing. Impact. Impact. Okay, that was pretty easy. So 550, no problem. I guess we'll give 600 a try. Okay, we got sort of getting on glass for me. Shooting at about 650 here, so kind of need it.
Ice out here.
Yeah, I need his guidance, especially because I'm just on a red dot, right? Well, green dot in the case of this MRL.
All right, Mike, I'm on glass. You were low. You hit the feet.
Okay.
Right under, like, where the hip would be. Hit. Hit.
Nice. Okay, so we got it to 650. It's feeling great. The Daniels Defense is a very, very accurate rifle. Even with the red dot, I'm making these impacts really no problem. So for a combat gun, I mean for any gun, this is good, guys.
It's really cool watching the bullet travel through the rain.
Hope you guys can see how muddy I am. This is all for science.
It's literally soup out here.
Well, thanks for nothing, aimpoint. So we've done a lot of shooting at this point, guys. This is a very accurate rifle. Let's go ahead and let's take it to the black screen. Let's break this down. You guys see that the shooting performance is quite good. Let's break down why this rifle is so dang good. So we've done a lot of shooting. Now we're going to do a lot of talking as we delve into the Daniel Defense M4A1 RIS III. The thing you have to understand at this point is that this isn't merely a weapon that is untested. At this point, this has been through multiple conflicts, most notably the war in Ukraine, where it has performed very well. We're very lucky to have talked to multiple individuals, whether that be from individuals and engineers at Daniel Defense, whether that be fighters from the global war on terror, to individuals in Syria, all the way to individuals currently fighting in the trenches of Ukraine, actively as of right now, with real-world experience as of, well, this filming a few days ago. So we have a lot of real-world experience. Now, before we get into everything, we of course want to do our full disclosure. What is my relationship with Daniel Defense, and was there any exchange of money, anything like that? There's never an exchange of money for a review. We're very much so adamant that that never occurs. That being said, we do obviously have a relationship with Daniel Defense. We have reviewed other weapons from them, whether it be the older DDM4 V7s, although the very first one we bought, the Mark 18, was of course purchased by yours truly. But in the case of the RIS III, we did receive this about 2 years ago to begin a review on. We've been very slow in reviewing it, not because we have taken our time and kind of dragged our feet, but rather because we really wanted to make sure that we both put it through its paces. This thing at this point has seen well over 10,000 rounds, and also because we wanted to get real-world input from multiple users who at the time had just gotten their hands on them. With all that being said, we now have a fairly good picture of how the M4A1 RIS III performs. Now, the RIS III in every single way owes much of its lineage to the RIS II. In fact, if you look at the back right here, the mounting system is the exact same as the RIS II. And in fact, you can actually put a RIS II lower rail in here and get a RIS 2.5, as a lot of people affectionately call it. It is perhaps at this point one of the strongest rail lockups on the market that leads to very good repeatable zero for your lasers. Now, it is a free float barrel, and in addition to that, the RIS III also is M-lock. So typically at the M-lock, you see some pretty thin rails that can lead to deflection of the laser because they're so thin they can bend a little bit, especially out towards the ends. You don't see that nearly as much as with the RIS III as you do compared to other rails, whether it be the BCM NCMR or even the Geizy URGI, which performs well but still has deflection at the end of its rail. If you press on this, mostly what you see is a small amount of barrel flex, which is very normal for an AR-15. This isn't abnormal, and as you can see, due to the very good barrel nut that you have on the Daniel Defense, the barrel has a tendency to return right back to zero. We haven't noted any problems with these barrels bending, with the rails damaging, etc., etc. So we've talked a little bit and kind of started going into it, so let's break it down as we always do, full autism style, and just like the Navy likes, tip to butt. So I suppose the first thing we should start with is going to be at the end here, the suppressor. This is a soft suppressor. Soft has great relations over with CAT, many of the same engineers, but a very distinct kind of different philosophy and design philosophy. I should be quick to note that I'm also on the board for Soft, and I've helped them design some of these suppressors in terms of user end feedback. So of course I'm going to be biased. I love both CAT and Soft suppressors, and I've been very impressed with the performance we've gotten from this guy right here. It is a high flow can, which means that it has a great tendency to allow a lot of that gas forward, so you don't get nearly as much gas blowback. You, of course, are always going to get gas blowback with any suppressor because of the back pressure inherent in the suppressor design. But with all that being said, I believe it does a very good job, definitely on par with CAT. And if you look at the very ends of the suppressor, you have that induced porosity to help with that flow of the gases outwards. Very good design. We're not going to harp on that too much. Now, moving back from there, because obviously this suppressor doesn't come with Daniel Defense, it'd be cool if it did. All right, enough shilling, Mike. So going back to the muzzle device, when it comes to Daniel's Defense, they include their own muzzle device. Now, a word of caution for you guys. Now, the one that we have right here is a 14.5. Whether it be a 16 or a 14.5, oftentimes you do get a pin and weld. The thing I should caution you guys about is that Daniel Defense, of any company I've ever met, does a very deep pin and weld. They would do it what you say, I guess, properly, as much as I hate to say that because I think NFA is a joke. But due to NFA rules, of course, you have to have a 16-inch overall length on barrels. All gun laws are infringements. But they do a superb job of adhering to that policy, and that makes it difficult for you guys when you want to remove the muzzle device. You really have to make sure to drill all the way through that solder, and it does go quite a bit into the threading on the barrel itself. It's kind of one of the bummers when it comes to Daniel Defense. If you're able to get one that's not pin welded, that's definitely what I'd recommend. I've actually drilled out what I thought was all the silver solder in there, and I began to crank up the muzzle device, and I took off every single thread out of that guy. Is it that big of a deal? No. If you can, at that point, you got to send it off, get it cut down, pass there, and get it rethreaded. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but I wish it wasn't so, guys. But their muzzle device is quite good, but the fact of the matter is that most of you are going to end up changing it. So that's perhaps one of my first kind of big problems, is that it sucks on a 14.5 when it's pin and welded. 16, of course, you don't get that pin and weld, but I digress. Now, of course, it's your typical 1/2 by 28 threading, so any typical 5.56 muzzle device will easily fit on there. Now, moving back from there, we have the barrel. Now, this is probably an issue where we're going to run into a little bit of Geisley versus Daniel Defense. So the Daniel Defense barrel is exceptional. It is a in-house made cold hammer forged barrel. Cold hammer forging matters because there's a process by which the barrel material becomes incredibly dense. This leads to very good performance under high rates of fire. And indeed, when it comes to the overall service life of the barrel, you're looking at well beyond 20,000 rounds, often to 30,000 rounds. This is incredible when it comes to a barrel. And in addition to that, there's not really any fancy technology when it comes to Daniel Defense barrels. Much like Geisley and other really good manufacturers, they're merely doing the basics, or we'd call current military accepted standards, to extremely high QC levels. So we have a cold hammer forged barrel, we have chrome line barrel, and with all of this, it still manages to perform at about an MOA or less with good ammunition. Now, there has been some contention between both Daniel Defense and Geisley barrels are both cold hammer forged, and if you know, with military contracts, they've often kind of been head to head. Some people have noted throughout time and history, all the way back to 2020, that Daniel Defense barrels seem to be a tad more accurate. Now, it's not much, maybe about 0.1 MOA compared to the Geisley. Now, we haven't particularly seen that when we've done our testing of both Daniel Defense and Geisley barrels, but if I were actually to give an edge to anything, it would most likely be the Geisley barrel for the following reason. And the reason for that is that the Daniel Defense barrels actually use a government profile barrel compared to a more modern profile. The government profile barrel isn't exactly a design that's great for managing harmonics and heat, etc., etc. Now, it is, of course, good for mounting grenade launchers, but for most of you probably aren't going to throw an M203 on this thing because it's not as available, nor is it very handy to have a grenade launcher on your gun, although it is a complete and utter vibe. So yes, easy to mount your grenade launchers on here. However, the government profile barrel does leave a little bit to be desired when it comes to harmonics. In our experience, I'll say that perhaps, what's the scientific term for it? A smidge. Perhaps a smidge, it edges out Geisley in accuracy, which is quite incredible when you think about it. But nonetheless, their barrels are incredibly and very well vetted. From our gentlemen over in Ukraine who have used this in trench fighting for a long time, the thing that they note is that these barrels last for a very long time, that they've been very happy with their performance. They're, of course, quick to note that due to the thinner M-LOK handguards, especially compared to RIS II and other quad handguards, they do get hotter under that sustained fire that's being seen in trench fighting and general warfare and that close quarters kind of environment. That's not really a fault of the gun or the design, that's merely a limitation of firearms in general, at the moment being that they're powered by gunpowder, which is an explosion. Your gun's gonna get hot, guys, no matter what you do. So absolutely understand where they're coming from there, and perhaps a thicker rail might be better in certain situations. However, you'll see that the general trend among United States military and many NATO forces with their own great amount of combat experience is that the M-LOK rail does offer very good cooling and heat sink abilities unless you're running this thing like a... We have to edit out that word. Unless you're running it as a support weapon used to suppress people. YouTube rules, guys. Sorry about that. Now, we talked a lot about the barrel. We, of course, have a mid-length gas system. The mid-length gas system is very nice when it comes to the 14.5 and 16. It's a very soft recoil impulse coming back into your shoulder. Helps with part longevity because you have a longer impulse of that gas coming back before it strikes the bolt carrier group and causes it to, of course, move. This means that due to that longer mid-length system, you have the ability of that bolt carrier group to last for a much longer period of time compared to, say, if it was a carbine length gas system. Is it a huge deal? No, but you're looking at definitely a couple more thousand rounds out of your bolt carrier groups, etc. Moving over to our rail. The RIS III rail is among my favorite rails out there. Compared to even the URGI, I do find it to be superior in terms of strength and rigidity. Now, it is very comparable to about every M-LOK handguard that you see out there. We have M-LOK on old sides where you have Picatinny at the very top for the mounting of lasers to ensure rigidity. Now, the ability to pop off the lower rail to install grenade launchers, to pop on the RIS II rail to increase the rigidity of whatever you might need on there, I think makes this a very versatile system. And indeed, if you look at the end here, you can see how absolutely thick that rail is at the end. This is in every single way, a combat weapon. Many people have noted that the RIS III really doesn't save a whole lot of weight compared to the RIS II, and this is true. However, it is definitely more comfortable to hold for long periods of time, doesn't tear up your gloves as much, and still retains that really great ability to both retain, radiate heat, as well as mount all the accessories that you need, and has that legendary strength close to the RIS II. Now, you're not going to get anything as strong as the RIS II, especially when it comes to an M-LOK rail, but of course, you're going to save a little bit of weight and comfortability when you're holding your weapon. Now, moving back from there, of course, we have a few things going on that we want to point out here. We've been doing a fairly long evaluation on the 3EIR laser devices right here. They're made in America. I think it's really cool what they're doing. We've been really enjoying this laser device. For those of you who aren't familiar with this, we have a Surefire Scout on there with a mod light button right there. Boop, boop, time to die. And of course, right here, we are testing out SIG iron sights. Don't say anything. Or do they go off on their own? If it just pops up on its own suddenly. On the side here, of course, we have M-LOK. So in this case, we've mounted a BCM M-LOK QD interface right there. We have one of our older, which one is this? Oh, no, this is actually a tag. That's old school. This is a tactical assault gear sling. These have been around forever, but you know what? They still work. This thing's probably 20 years old at this point. I definitely didn't steal this from the US government. Now, we have an AFG on here because, well, we're not going to let the AFG die.
I'm tired, boss.
Sorry, buddy. You got to keep working. Now, moving back from here, we have probably one of the most incredible parts of the Daniel Defense weapon, and that is going to be the bolt carrier group. And when we talk about things that really matter on a rifle, you've got, of course, your barrel and the bolt carrier group. Those things are critical components when it comes to the AR-15. Now, when it comes to the bolt carrier group from Daniel Defense, again, there's nothing wazoo. There's not some weird gold plating on there that wipes off your finger or anything like that. What they are doing is they're doing mil-spec to an extremely high degree. And a lot of people are very quick to point out, they say, why does it matter? They're machining metal. How hard can it be? Well, you'd be surprised if you're in manufacturing machining, you'd be surprised at how quickly drill bits run out, how hard it is to QC all of your things, how hard it is to do magnetic testing, to do shot peening, etc., etc. What Daniel Defense is so good at is in their QC process and in their manufacturing process. They are precise in the way that they change out their bits and ensure that every machine is up to snuff as they're manufacturing the bolt carrier groups. Indeed, in all of the BCGs that we've had, that we've scoped and that we've checked out and measured specifically, the Daniel Defense has always been in the green. This is incredible. And because everything is completely to spec, you're able to more precisely gas your weapon and ensure parts interchangeability as parts wear out, because they're inevitably going to wear out. Because of that, everything in this gun is going to function very smooth. Once again, this is a combat weapon. Now, one thing that we have to do is we have to give a big shout out to our friends over at School of the American Rifle, otherwise known as SOTAR. They did a really great breakdown of the Daniel Defense bolt at about 7,000 rounds. And the thing that they noted is that the bolts and bolt carrier group both spec'd incredibly well after 7K. A bolt carrier group, well, more specifically, a bolt is a wear item. It will break eventually, guys. I know there's going to be somebody out there who says, my bolt has 100,000 rounds on it. Doubtful. But typically, I like to switch my bolts at about 10 to 15K. At about 7K, everything was still speccing great on the Daniel Defense. This is definitely something to be said about how well they make their bolts and their bolt carrier groups. Let's talk about the materials used. Now, when it comes to the bolt carrier itself, it's your typical 8620 steel. It is a typical phosphate coating, which is what you mostly see with many military and mil-spec rifles because it is so good at corrosion resistance. In addition to that, it smooths out very well after about 200 to 300 rounds and does a great job at withstanding all the different environments you can put it in. The inside of it, of course, is chrome lined. And then when you go over to the bolt itself, here's where it matters. The bolt is your Carpenter 158 steel. It's high pressure tested, magnetic particle tested. Of course, you have it's shot peening. What shot peening is some type of media is fired at the bolt, creates little, kind of like teeny little hammers hitting it. This kind of helps relieve stress and ensures that cracks don't form. Again, they're not doing anything that's crazy, but what they're good at is they're incredible at the things that matter. They're incredible at the QC. All this makes for a rifle that is going to last you for a very long period of time. And not to spoil things, but if I had to trust my life to a rifle, I would 100% trust my life to a Daniel Defense rifle because they are so incredibly well made. Now, of course, we've talked enough about the bolt carrier group. So let's move down to the lower here. The lower is where I think there's a little bit left to be desired, and that's primarily due to the trigger. The trigger that Daniel Defense rifles come with is a typical mil-spec trigger. Given the price of a Daniel Defense rifle, especially when you compare it to something like a Geisley, it's a bit old at this point, or old school, to still be offering such a, I would say, not a subpar trigger. I understand that everything's mil-spec, but Geisley, for about the same price point or less and about the same quality, offers a really good trigger compared to the Daniel Defense, and that's about the only thing that you typically see people having to upgrade on the Daniel Defense rifles, which is a trigger. And of course, we do have a Geisley SSAE because that is our combat trigger of choice. So the trigger always leaves something to be desired. Now, the one thing that I will say when it comes to our Daniel Defense M4A1 RIS III is that the lower, their ambidextrous lower, is actually quite nice. And I know my now, both me and my camera guy are left-handed. Now, unlike him, I have rejected saying I don't shoot left-handed, I shoot right-handed. But for my camera guy, he loves the left-handed controls. So let's talk a little bit about them. Now, on the right-hand side, for our righties out there, of course, we have magazine release, and we have our bolt hold open device right here. We have bolt release right here. So you can do everything with your fire control finger right here. No need for the bad lever anymore. Although I will say in some ways, it's kind of nice just to have the bad lever to hit right there. Now, on our left-hand side, we of course have magazine release, and then you have your standard controls of bolt hold open and bolt release right there. Now, we talked about the trigger, so we have to, of course, show the trigger. So put your finger right over mine. Let's go set trigger together, boys. So typical Geisley SSA 2-stage trigger, which is what I prefer. You have that about 2 to 3 millimeters of play. Once you get into that wall, about a 2.5 to 3 pound let off. You have a total of about 4.5 to 5 pound pull, but it is very smooth. A lot of people say it's like breaking a thin little glass rod. It is a beautiful trigger. And more importantly, Geisley SSAE triggers are combat tested and combat approved. Of course, the combat triggers is an SSF, being that most of you aren't running very fun mode. Doesn't really matter as much, but if you have a very fun mode SSF trigger, it'll perform exactly the same. Now, under safety, we have our typical long safety on the left side, and then you can either have a shorter or a longer throw on your right side. I typically prefer a shorter lever on my right side because I don't like it to get in the way of my hand, especially with gloves, guys with big hands that can sometimes get in your way. But what's nice is when you're shooting long range, it's nice to be able to have your safety right there so you can operate everything from the right side. Because typically what people will do on long range shooting, me included, is you get your whole hand on the right side of the grip right here in order to shoot. So that is that right there. Now, when it comes to the grips, I've always been a big fan of Daniel Defense grips. They have a very steep grip angle, which is great for modern shooting. In addition to that, I actually very much so like the rubberized coating right here. It's very nice for me. I enjoy it quite a bit. And some people don't like them. Again, this is something that's very easy to switch out. Me personally, I love it. Now, one thing that I'm not a huge fan of is their butt socks. I think they look kind of goofy. They're fine. It's me just being autistic. So I swapped that out for a BCM butt sock, one of my favorite butt socks. So we have that right here. You of course have the QD point right at the rear of the receiver. If you're one of those guys who never throws this gun on your back and you don't know anything, you put up, just kidding guys. I understand everyone's gonna have a different setup on the rifle, but generally we've always recommended opposite side, right side, opposite side, left side. That way you can easily sling this rifle over your shoulder, especially when you're climbing over walls, etc., etc. Now, the buffer system in this guy is nothing that special. This was just made to be a typical H or H2. In here right now, we just have a typical H carbine buffer, and that's been working great in the 10,000 or so rounds that we've been firing it. We, of course, did get our bolt and bolt carrier group also spec'd. Everything is currently in spec, although everything's getting towards the yellow side. I'll likely be replacing the bolt in the near future. And this is typical for a high round count, especially as we're firing all suppressed. I'm just hard on my guns. So probably around the 15 to 20K mark is when we'll swap out that bolt because we don't want to, risk any of our lugs on the bolts shearing or anything like that. Now, All that being said, what is it like from the shooter's perspective? This gun is deadly accurate. This gun is deadly fast. And more importantly, this gun is deadly reliable. So we have reliability, consistency, and repeatability. All these things matter when it comes to a combat weapon. I've been very, very pleased with the M4A1 RIS III. It is a very light recoil impulse. And indeed, I hope you guys, if you're looking for a truly hard use gun that you can depend your life on, I would have no problem recommending the Daniel Defense, just as we've recommended other very good guns like the URGI. They're also similarly very well made. I'd consider these two direct competitors, but again, it's going to be different flavors for different folks, whatever's going to work for you. Now, the price on the Daniel Defense is always going to be a sticking point. I understand that they come in higher than the URGI. I'm not going to recommend one specifically over the other because I believe that the performance of both rifles is so close that I don't know that the increased price that you typically see in Daniel Defense rifles, again, it depends, you can find great deals on them, is going to necessitate getting this over the URGI. And again, with having to upgrade the trigger, I have a tendency to say to go for the other. That being said, if you're dead set on a Daniel Defense, this thing is incredible. And I will say that compared to the URGI, I do believe that the rail lockup is definitely stronger and that its ability to hold zero on its lasers is stronger than the URGI, especially after looking at the SOCOM testing that was conducted in about 2019. So with all those things being said, this is a definite recommendation for me. Now, as always, we say, is it worth it? Well, that's going to be up to you. I think that you guys are worth it personally. Find yourselves a good AR-15. If you already have a Daniel Defense, even if you don't have a RIS III, you're going to be well set. If you already have a RIS II, if you already have a DDM4V7, you are fine, guys. You certainly don't have to upgrade, especially now that you can buy the rail on its own. There's nothing really different, radically different that's happening on the DDM4A1 RIS III compared to the olders that necessitate buying a whole new gun. Guys, get out there. As always, do good stuff, train. If there's a guy out there training with this, I'll be deadly scared of him because, man, this is a very, very capable rifle. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. As always, go and check out the Patreon. Me and Sawyer are playing video games, having a good time, and you can hop in. We have great game nights. We actually just played a really fun one in Battlefield 6. We play all the weird custom maps. It's a good community. Hop in there, guys. We appreciate you so much. Final thing for you guys could be a little bit of dad advice. A little bit of dad advice for today is going to be cardio. I know it sucks, but you know what sucks even more? Not being there for your kids because you passed away too early because you never did cardio and your heart sucks. Get out there, ride a mountain bike, get on that assault bike, get on that Stairmaster, and make sure you're not too fat. Make sure you're, fat enough to be able to rip a man's jaw off his head, but not too fat that you can't get on a Stairmaster. So you guys, you take care.